This course has been authored by a qualified expert and is delivered in a self-paced format. It's been designed to help you accelerate the mastery and retention of the concepts and skills using a structured learning plan, interactive content, knowledge checks, access to live support, and much more.
Let's take a look now at the course outline for the 742 exam. This is the third exam for the MCSA certification on Windows Server 2016, and it's the exam that covers Active Directory, or better said, just identity management. An identity is a user account or a group that uniquely identifies a person within the Active Directory domain services infrastructure. Microsoft has done some different things with their outline for Windows Server 2016, and it's a little bit odd actually that Active Directory is covered in the third exam. It makes sense how they've organized things, and they've grouped everything Active Directory related into a single exam, but it still does represent a change from some of the previous versions. So to begin with Active Directory, you have to understand that there are different roles related to Active Directory, but the primary one that we're talking about when we use the term AD or Active Directory is ADDS, Active Directory Domain Services. And we're going to spend the first several chapters talking about Active Directory Domain Services, the foundation of which is going to be domain controllers. So we start with installing and configuring domain controllers running Windows Server 2016. How do we go about installing the role? What are some of the prerequisite requirements? How do we then promote machines to domain controllers? And we'll also go through various terms related to Active Directory domain services. Then we'll get into managing the objects, the users, the groups, the computers, the service accounts, using various tools, both graphical tools as well as the Windows PowerShell command line utility. We'll spend some time talking about securing Active Directory. Being that it is the foundation of the Windows network, it would be a target for security attacks and definitely provide a great ability to compromise an entire network. So it's important that we know what's going on, we know who's performing actions, and we know when somebody's attempting to do things. So we'll talk about things like physical security, but we'll also look at auditing and other policy-based controls. Then we're going to look at working with complex AD/DS infrastructures. These would be infrastructures that have multiple domains, potentially even multiple forests, and also multiple sites. If you're not familiar with those terms, don't worry. We're going to get into them in the first chapter. Another big piece to Active Directory is something known as group policy. It is centralized management to a T, being able to control both user account and computer account settings in Active Directory environments. We're going to spend a whole chapter talking about the implementation of group policy. And one of the newer features in Active Directory is the ability to synchronize with Microsoft's Azure AD, which is their cloud-based version of Active Directory. We'll spend some time talking about monitoring and recovering ADDS to make sure that it's not only implemented correctly, but that it continues to function in a way that is efficient. And then we're going to start to talk about some of those fringe services. I said at the beginning, Active Directory domain services is what we're usually talking about when we use the term AD, but there is now Active Directory certificate services, the foundation of a public key infrastructure. Active Directory federated services, providing single sign-on capabilities across multiple platforms and organizational boundaries. And Active Directory rights management services, providing the needed functionality called information rights management in order to protect our documents. Not every organization will utilize those last three services. However, they will be certainly covered on the exam, and they are being used more and more in today's enterprise networks. So that kind of lays out what we have to do in the course. As you can see, there's a lot to cover. Some very important information here for both real-life scenarios as well as for the exam. So once again, my name is Patrick Lohner, and I'm excited to get started with this material with you to get you prepared for the 742 exam. So let's get going.
Enroll now for lifetime access to this course, a certificate of completion, and access to live support whenever you need it.